Hey everyone, it's your girl Cozy Girl Simmer here, and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be diving into a topic that's been on my mind for a while now, specifically after this past weekend concerning a thread I saw on Tumblr, which we will get more into as the video progresses. It is the current state of the Sims 4 custom content community and how early access is starting to really ruin the joys of it. I'm specifically talking about creators who not only keep their custom content behind paywalls for weeks but sometimes months, but then also the ones who charge an uptick amount in having early access to that content, and then also how the linkage between Patreon and CurseForge is at an all-time high, which just adds even more layers to the issue at hand. So sit back, relax, and let's all unpack it and talk about it and how things have changed in not a good way, granted, but you know, all that fun stuff. But with that being said, consider subscribing if you guys enjoy content like this. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the Sims 4 custom content community. The amount of creativity that goes into making things like hair, clothes, furniture, and even some gameplay mods is absolutely unreal, and I love the talent that I get to, you know, see and show off and whatnot. But, you know, we have to kind of face the fact that the Sims 4, or the Sims in general, is kind of limited without our custom content that we hold on to so deeply. But lately I have just been noticing something troubling. There's been a massive shift in how creators distribute their content, and it's starting to affect the community in ways that I think really need to be talked about. Specifically, kind of keep this in mind as I talk about things in this video. Think about FOMO, which is basically the idea of just missing out on stuff, and so just fear of missing out. And I think that a lot of that is being played right now in real time with the community for The Sims. Platforms like Patreon have been becoming more of a big deal in the CC world. Creators can get direct support, you know, from their fans, and I think that's fantastic, you know, that you're able to get direct support from your fans. But the problem that lies there is that more and more creators are keeping their custom content behind paywalls for not only weeks, not only months, sometimes years. There are specific items that I am thinking about now that are still behind a paywall, and it's been 2 years since they have been released. And it's just one of those things that you can't help but think, but why is it still behind a paywall? And on top of that, why are you still charging some of your Patreons $5, $10, sometimes $20? I've seen $15, I've seen $50, you know, for these items, and at most sometimes it's just a hair, or it's a small minute set that was created using EA meshes, mind you, keep that in mind because we're going to come back to that. And you kind of start to think, when does early access stop being a benefit for supporters to support their creators, but rather it starts becoming a barrier for the remainder of the community who don't want to really pay or don't have the money to pay, you know, to have early access to this custom content. It's one thing to offer a few days of early access as a perk, but when content stays behind a paywall for weeks, months, or even a year, it creates a real problem. And this trend isn't just limited to Patreon, but is kind of just everywhere. I've just kind of noticed that. Now, I get that a lot of people use Patreon in terms of YouTube to have access to videos that, you know, don't have to follow specific guidelines, so I get that, I understand that. But it's a different issue for the Sims custom content community because, again, kind of going back to what I said before, it creates a barrier for those who who can't afford. I know that for me, like, if I saw someone who was charging $10, $15 every month and I'm only getting stuff every 2 months, then, you know, thinking about that $30 or that $20 or sometimes even that $100 if you're charging $50, you know, for the exclusive stuff, that's, you know, money that could be going towards things like grocery, gas, stuff that, you people are really dealing with in real time, in real life. We don't have the luxury just to throw $50 at you and keep it moving. We just don't have that. We have other things we have to consider and think about. Post or the thread that I saw on Tumblr. This is why I wanted to make this video, because I find stuff like this really gets on my nerves, because it's the idea of entitlement and that you feel like you've done no wrong and you don't really see the actual struggles that people go through in their everyday life. And mind you, most of us who are part of the Sims community or create stuff for the Sims community, this is a hobby for us. We find joy and excitement out of it. It is not a business. It's not something that we want to turn into that. And unfortunately, we have creators who are turning their hobby into a business that they're trying to make lucrative amounts of money off of. So again, kind of getting into that post, this custom content creator made a post regards of their Christmas stuff, Christmas CC, and so they put up the post, and they have a 2-month early access policy, meaning that you cannot get their custom content that they put up for a whole 2 months until that window opens up, which if they posted something in terms of Christmas in December, that means that it would not be ready to go and that people couldn't get access to it until February. Someone down in their comment section or thread on Tumblr said that, I think you should have had your stuff released in October for early access, so then by the time December gets here, we can get access to it and have it in time for Christmas. This custom content creator did not like this response, and I mean they did not like this response. They said stuff that I would personally never say to anyone, especially if someone just suggested a small hey, we should do this instead, because 9 times out of 10 the person who probably suggested this just was like, this is a bit ridiculous to have stuff out in February for Christmas when December is this month and Christmas is this month, so what sense does that make? And the fact that this creator went on to say that this person was entitled and that their supporters, some of their supporters who get their stuff for free, act like toddlers, and that they're not readjusting anything for free downloaders, or that on top of that they're gonna pay their salary for the month. And what I kind of got from that was, you're not gonna pay my salary. Are you gonna pay my salary instead this month? What I got from that was that you're using this as a full-time job, and that a free gift hurts your pockets. That's exactly what I got from this. And I might be reading this wrong, but that's exactly what I was picking up from this post in detail. Like I said, I will include it in the video. I will probably more than likely scratch out the creator's name just because we are talking about them as anonymous here. But honestly, if you have been on Tumblr this weekend, you know who it is. You know where to find this information at. But like I said, it's just downright disrespectful, downright rude, and how you are treating your supporters who are just suggesting different ideas to help you in the long run, because this means that this person might be willing to come back and pay for it or pay for anything from you. But if you tweak it this way or you tweak it this way, you just rubbed so many people the wrong way off of how you responded to this, and it's making its rounds on Tumblr, so people are seeing how you are acting in real time. Another issue that I want to talk about that has been, about a year and a half. I'm trying to really think of the timeline exactly. That I'm really thinking about is CurseForge, and there was, if I can find it, I will put it in the video, but there was a specific Tumblr page that was talking about how certain creators are still part of CurseForge, knowing who they support in the background, and that they shouldn't be doing this. But when you have CurseForge, as another platform where people can gain money from, a lot of people will ignore the morality of what's being done behind the scenes and will not care because all they see is dollar signs, and that's, what a lot of people are really looking at here, especially kind of going back to Patreon. I have seen it where someone has, had something out for early access for, this period of time. You can, once you get access to that post, you'll click on it, then there will be another download link. This is where the gag is. That download link will take you to CurseForge, meaning that they are making money off of a link for however long they have it like this. They're making money off of said link that is behind a paywall that is being taken to another site where they are making money off of that. At some point, I am looking at this and saying, this is absolutely ridiculous. I genuinely cannot believe that this is where we are coming to in terms of how custom content is being shared, through all this stuff. Like, we have to go through several different links, knowing that one's paywalled for sure, and the other one you're making money as long as I download this or as long as I click on your link. And even then, that link is behind a paywall. So meaning however many people are paying just to get links, plus anyone who's coming after that for free, you're making grand amounts of money off of this. And again, for you just to adjust your pay periods or adjust how you're releasing stuff is too much. That's when it really is an issue. And I take, I guess I could say anger in that, because that's just not right to me. You're probably wondering, has it always been like this? Has it always been behind paywalls? Can I not get stuff like this? The answer is no. To ultimately answer the question, the answer is no. I remember the Sims community being very accessible and very open to how you can get access to certain items and whatnot. I remember creators like Newsy and Around the Sims who would upload their custom content directly on their sites that you could get and download it for free. No memberships, no paywalls, just pure creative sharing. Now, sure, they did have their donation buttons or sometimes offered gifts to those, as a thank you for supporting them, but this was not their primary way of getting, stuff from people. If I'm not mistaken, I think still to this day that if you go to Around the Sims, you can see, traces of this. Even thinking with donations, creators would still release their stuff to the public regularly. This community was built on being accessible for everyone. You could download new CC whenever you wanted, and if you wanted to support your favorite creators, you could donate or buy a gift from them. But at the end of the day, you still had access to what they created. It wasn't about locking everything behind a paywall for weeks, months, or years at a time. I mean, think about now, if you were someone who's been around since The Sims 2 or Sims 3 days and downloading stuff, you could go on massive CC shopping sprees without ever hitting a paywall and ever having to, pay to get something. You had other options. It wasn't like it was just, this is what you had to do and that was it. So what's happening now is that we are seeing a growing divide in the community. You've got people who can afford to pay for early access, and then you got the rest of us who can't or don't want to pay. And it's not only just frustrating, it's hurting the spirit of this community, a community that I know very well and I've been around for a long time. I do mean this with my heart when I say The Sims has always been a creative and sharing community that I have, just like I said, known for years. But when you have creators holding their custom contents hostage for a long period of time and expecting people to pay $5, $10, $15, $20, $25, $30, almost $50, getting up to that range just for access for a couple items at most, sometimes even one, it just starts to really feel like a business. And you really have to just start thinking this is the perspective that most of these creators are thinking from. This shift has also made it harder for new creators to get into the game because of the unrealistic expectations of these popular CC creators or these big CC creators setting their stuff for early access for long periods of time. So that means when someone new starts creating stuff, they think like, okay, like this is the cycle I have to start if I want to see any sort of success, because this is the expectation now, this is where the bar is at. And I feel like this is creating such a toxic community because of this. I mean, you'll have people who will defend these creators about how much they are charging, but I'm glad that most of the community realizes that this is unfair and very unrealistic in these practices. Now, here's the ethical question I want to kind of ask and kind of throw out there for multiple of us to really have a healthy discussion about. But do creators deserve to be compensated for their work? I feel as if, no doubt about it, they should, but to a certain extent. Custom content, I understand, takes a lot of time and effort, but when does early access really start to become that exploitation? Like, when are they starting to exploit their supporters to support their lifestyles behind the screen? When does the community get pushed aside for the sake of profit? Because let's face it, when creators drag out early access for months, years, weeks, however you want to put it, they put up barriers, for people who just want to support them or, use their stuff that they are making. It just starts to feel like the community is being punished for not being able to afford or not being able to pay for early access. And once again, that's just unfair and it's just not right. And I feel as if there needs to be a change moving forward. And, how do we get to that change? So, again, what can we do about this change that we want? I think that the answer lies truly in balance. So, understanding creators deserve to be supported for their hard work. I know that people have like coffee links, and that there's some people who put their stuff on Patreon, but they never put it behind early access. I guess in a sense, they allow you to make a humble donation if you feel, ever so kind to do so. You don't have to, but if you would like to, they give you that option. I also feel as if that early access should be shifted once again. I feel like 2 weeks is fair. I feel like literally nothing more than 30 days is fair. I honestly personally stand with the 2-week policy, but I understand that they want the whole month, they want the billing cycle, so they do the 30 days. Now, creators do offer some creators do offer some exclusive perks and behind the scene, like, for early access and voting and stuff. And again, I don't feel like those tiers should be charged as much as I've seen them charged before. I feel like you can do early access screenshots, work in progress, all that fun stuff, or polls that you want, your supporters to be directly involved in. I feel like you can charge a minimal amount of money to have access to that. I don't feel like you should be charging $15 to just have access to something as minute as that. Like, I'm not even really getting much out of this besides being able to vote in something, and then what happens if what I voted for didn't win? So then now you're sitting there and you're like, I just spent $15 on this. And that's when reality really starts to settle in. And I think that this community should not be as toxic as it is. I know that is easier said than done, because that's just the reality of most situations in most communities, unfortunately, at this current time. I just feel like there needs to be a compromise. I think compromise is something that is really truly needed in this community, and it should start sooner rather than later, because I feel like we are having too much of the same song and dance every single time that there is a creator who feels like they are entitled to all of this stuff in concern of how they're receiving their profits. Please let me know, how you feel about all this stuff down in the comment section, whether that be like, how do you feel about early access on Patreon? How do you feel about Patreon and CurseForge being used together in the community? Do you think that things are getting out of hand? Do you think, you know, we're gonna change from how we are now. You know, I would really genuinely love to hear everyone's thoughts on this, because I feel like this is such an important topic, because this affects how we play our games, what we do moving forward. And I don't feel like, you know, we should dox people. I feel like that's just kind of one of those things that I don't like getting involved with, but I do feel like we can have healthy discussion, and I know it's very hard to change people's minds moving forward. I understand people can be very stubborn, and especially they can be stubborn if they are accustomed to living a lifestyle that they were able to achieve from, you know, charging as much as they do for as long as periods as they do in terms of early access. And it's just one of those things that things need to shift, things need to change, and it's just as simple as that. So yeah, I hope that you guys all enjoyed this video, and again, please let me know, you know, how you feel about this down in the comment section, and please let me know if you would like to see more content like this, where I'm just talking about these heartfelt issues of the community.